Welcome, people, to another episode of the Irrelevant Files. I'm
Hello.
your host, Lebs. I go by the name of Thanos because I feel like, I do things myself, I take charge and, when I don't see things being done, I tend to go ahead and just do it myself, you know what I mean?
hmm
I am, of course, joined by my lovely co host, Nisi. Nisi, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I just had probably one of the best meals this week, and I'm content.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Mhm.
Contentment is always a good thing, You're not asking for too much. You're not asking for, the whole world. So that's a good thing. Um, Now I've named this show today meditation, primarily because um, I feel like in these sort of times, these testing and trying times, it's very important for to get the answers from within because you're expecting answers from first of all, you're getting confused from all different angles about, the current state of the world.
hmm
You're getting confused about, the facts. They're telling you that, things are one way, things are another way. And, the information just keeps changing, essentially on a day to day basis. And I feel like it's important to, just take a step back and kind of look at the answers that you're looking for from within.
Yeah.
And I've kind of been on that kind of vibe as of late. Now I know that Nisi, you yourself, you've kind of been on that vibe already anyway.
hmm
So what I'd like to take the opportunity of doing for kind of the first part of the show is just to kind of get your insights as to how meditation has helped you in the not too I guess in the recent past. If we could just shed some light on that for us, that'd be great.
Um. Well, my journey actually started around this time last year. Actually, um, I was having, I guess you would say, anxiety. And just that was just on a personal level. Like when you've been through things and you don't know how to heal, because there's certain things that we're not taught in life. Obviously you go to school and you learn your algebras, your English language and all of that, your sciences, but things that actually make you human, based on emotions and some thoughts that you have, we're not taught how to manage those things. So naturally, a lot of people, because we don't know how to deal with emotional traumas, we harbor a lot of anxiety because you just never really heal from things. Um, and I guess it's just you're carrying a lot of unresolved issues, and it just compounds onto itself, and it's like a hill becomes a mountain, and it's hard to overcome things like that when it feels like it's bigger than you. So it's only like recently, actually, in the last probably 5 or 6 months, that I've actively engaged in it with an intention. Um, and I can actually sit here and say that ever since that, I've not experienced any symptoms of anxiety. Whenever I do feel like something is becoming bigger than me, or seemingly like I can't handle something, I always just take 5 minutes to just breathe and reconnect with myself. And it's done such amazing things for me, and I would honestly encourage everyone to try it, to do it. And of course, when you first start, it's not exactly easy because it's not something that we do in our regular life. We don't grow up necessarily seeing our parents do it. It's not normal. So it will take time to get to a point where you actually start to reap the benefits of it. But it's something that I would highly, highly recommend. And I would say
Okay.
should engage in that. Definitely, definitely.
Okay. Now, I don't want to make this too much of a technical show um, in terms of how to actually go about meditating. Obviously, we'll look at some information, or rather, we'll put some information just to kind of get people started on that journey.
Hmm.
Um, we'll put that information kind of in the show notes. So, as I say, I don't want to make it too technical because there is quite a lot involved as far as knowledge and the things that you will learn as you go.
Mm.
Um, and that's kind of the primary reason I don't want to do that, is because I'd rather people find out for themselves as
Yeah.
far as that's concerned. But I just want to touch on a couple of things that you mentioned there. So you mentioned about intentions.
Hmm.
So my question to you would be, is there a difference between sort of meditating essentially, I guess, passively, and what would be the results of that versus meditating with an intention? And again, what will be the results of that?
Based on my own experience, I would say there's a definite distinction between the two. Like I previously just said, my journey with meditation started around this time last year, but I only started to reap the benefits of it within the last 5 or 6 months. So I feel like at first the intention was there in the sense of like I wanted to get something from it, but the actual purpose that drives the intention was never there.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Okay.
essentially just passively meditating, quote unquote. It was never a case of actually trying to reach a point of healing. Because as I say, we all go through things like through things in life. We
Mm,
all have traumas, emotional traumas, experiences that are hurtful in a lot of ways, and we don't know how to overcome those things.
mm, mm,
So we'll try, and unfortunately, people try self-medicating with alcohol, drugs, and all of those kinds of things. And
mm-hmm.
we all know that that doesn't have a lasting good effect. In
Yeah.
most cases, it kind of it goes way left, and it can be tragic in some cases.
Mm,
And I didn't want to go down that road. That's why I started meditating. But I didn't know how to meditate, so it was very passive. I just sat there and I didn't work through the emotions. And as I say, it's only in the last 5 or 6 months that I actually started to understand the purpose that drives the intention.
okay.
Which was for me, I didn't want to keep going through the same cycles emotionally, where 1 minute I'm okay, and then the next minute I'm like bursting with like rage or sadness. 1 minute I'm crying, 1 minute I'm happy, just very unstable.
Mm,
So I only just recently started to really understand how to go about meditating productively to actually reach the end goal. So there is a definite difference in my opinion.
okay. Okay. Now, see, that's very interesting, right? Because a lot of people, when they see people meditating, myself included, I'll be honest, I thought that meditating was just kind of an opportunity for you to clear your mind and just have essentially no thoughts going through your head while you're in the meditative state. Um, I erroneously thought that, when you're meditating, you're not trying to necessarily accomplish anything. You're just trying to get yourself, or essentially give yourself a break from the daily grind. For example,
Mm-hmm.
um, modern day life is such that you're bombarded, like I said earlier, with information from all different sources,
Yeah.
and I thought that people saw meditation kind of as an escape from that, and I never really understood it until I kind of started looking into it more for myself.
Mm.
And I'll be honest, I'm still obviously a novice at this. Um, I've not done any kind of meditating that I think is worthy of necessarily, or that would necessarily yield any type of results.
Yeah.
I'll give you a little bit of my kind of experience with it. I started off with this guided meditation. primarily for sleeping.
Okay.
And my experience was very strange. I did it over a 4-day period. I'm still kind of doing it. Well, I'm definitely still doing it on a nightly basis. But excuse me. Yeah, it was very bizarre, but in a good way. So the first day or the first night, I didn't really feel anything really significantly different. I just remember falling asleep in what must have been record time, because usually, when you're trying to sleep, at least for me, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate, when you're trying to sleep, your mind's racing, you're thinking about the next day, what you're gonna do, whatever's on your agenda for that day, as far as work and meetings and deadlines and all sorts of different things. And it's very difficult to put your mind at rest in order for you to be able to fall asleep at any kind of reasonable time.
Mm-hmm.
But that didn't happen the first time I went through the guided meditation. I pretty much just fell asleep. I remember I was kind of laying on my front side, which, obviously is not recommended. And I wasn't actually planning on sleeping in that position for long anyway. But I just remember just falling asleep. I was gone.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing I remember was waking up the next day on my left hand side, which is where I prefer to sleep. No idea how I moved to my left hand side. I don't remember doing it. But yeah, it was just, it wasn't even that long of a sleep. It was like about 5 or 6 hours. But I just remember it being such good sleep the whole way through.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next night, pretty much same similar type of story, except I didn't fall asleep straight away. I listened to the song, or the meditation, the guided meditation I listened to was about half an hour, something like that. And I listened to it the whole way through, and then I put it on repeat. So on the second playthrough, so this is probably about 45 minutes into the meditation now, I again lying on my front side, I went to go turn, and I just remember my limbs feeling like they're so incredibly heavy. It was bizarre. But the thing is the chants and the mantras that the lady was speaking throughout the meditation, um, they kind of guide you to where it's like a self hypnosis type of meditation,
Mm-hmm.
where essentially it makes you feel sleepy and then you fall asleep.
Okay.
And obviously that I experienced that element whereby I felt like my limbs were so heavy that I couldn't actually lift them with any great. It was difficult essentially to actually move.
Okay.
And the most bizarre aspect of it was it just felt like everything was moving in slow motion,
Yeah.
even to where like I felt like if I was about to speak. I even did try to speak because I was just so mesmerized. I was like, "Whoa, what is going on?" But it felt like I was speaking in slow motion, like, "Whoa, what's going?" It was that type of. It was just bizarre,
Okay.
but again, in a good way. Like I didn't feel like I was in any type of. You know how like sometimes you get sleep paralysis, those type of experiences where you're in like a lot of fear and you don't know what's going on.
Mm.
But in this instance, I was just at peace. I just didn't understand necessarily what was happening, but I knew that it had something to do with the meditation that I was essentially going through.
Mm-hmm.
I did eventually manage to turn, but it was with a lot of effort because, like I said, my limbs felt like they were so heavy. And then by the time I put my head back down on the pillow, I was gone. Like I was just fast asleep. It was one of those ones, and it was just again amazing sleep. Now I've not actually experienced that since that day, but I suspect that is because the last 2 nights, as I say, I've been doing this for 4 nights now, so tonight will be my fifth night.
Mm-hmm.
So the last 2 nights have essentially just been I will start the meditation, and before it's even finished, I'm already asleep.
Okay.
And like I said, the last 4 nights of sleep have been some of the best sleep I've had in a long, long time.
That's really
No, I
good.
say all of that to say because I'm excited about the prospect of starting meditation, like you said before, with intentions in mind
Hmm.
of what it is I'm trying to actually achieve.
Yeah.
Because previously, I'll admit again, I was very fearful of what I might discover about myself.
Yeah.
I know that everybody, no matter who you are, everybody knows their deepest flaws, right? And you can't lie to yourself,
Hmm.
right? So I guess I was afraid of finding out those very things that the very things that make you who you are in the flawed sense, that those things that you're trying to suppress, those are the things that I was afraid of kind of coming to face with,
Mm.
because you're looking at yourself in your worst, absolute worst light.
Yeah.
Every one of those things um, that do not provide any kind of value to your life. If anything, they actually holding you back from achieving certain goals, or getting towards certain positions, or whatever it is that you're trying to achieve in your life.
Yeah.
Those things that you're trying to suppress are actually holding you back.
Mm. Yeah.
So I was afraid of actually coming to face with those things. But
Mm.
obviously, I've realized that, what, in order for me to progress as a human being on this plane, I need to actually get to a point where, what, I face my demons and I overcome those demons in
Yeah.
order for me to at the very least aspire to reach my potential.
Mm. Yeah. Well, that's a big one. Just kind of touch back to what you said. Um, Meditation, the way I understand it, it can be whatever you need it to be in that moment.
Mm,
So obviously, if you're having a hard time sleeping, there's a plethora of meditations that will help you with that, as you've obviously experienced.
mm,
And if you've ever been in a situation where, say you're at work, for example, you're
mm,
about to go into a meeting, maybe you're going to do a presentation, your nerves are like at an all-time high, you're nervous, you're sweating,
mm,
all these things are happening, which are natural. But then obviously, when you're in a work environment, maybe you're trying to sell an idea to an advert company or something, whatever it is,
mm,
you need
mm.
to be sharp.
Yeah.
So taking that 5 minutes, like I said before, even I do this sometimes, like just that 5 minutes to just breathe and just calm yourself down. That's a
Mm,
form of meditation because you're centering back to a neutral point where you have a handle on your emotions and you can
mm,
do something. It's obviously natural to get nervous because it means you care about something. There's like an emotional investment in something. You were part
mm,
of the presentation to prepare for it. You've rehearsed. So you've put time and effort into that. Of course, you care about it. So you're
mm,
going to be nervous about how it's going to be, received by whoever you're trying to sell it to. So that 5 minutes that you take to just breathe, go through it like you can do it. It's just that those mantras that you take yourself, those affirmations, is a form
mm,
of meditation.
mm,
So
mm.
meditation can be whatever you need it to be. And
Yeah.
as you were talking, actually just now, I had this vision. I have like, I don't know. I'm a naturally visual person. Like I'm a naturally creative person, so I'm more visual. So as you were talking just now, I had this vision when you were talking about um, being afraid of facing yourself and facing the worst parts of you. I just had this vision of, imagine you're carrying a trash bag, like a black bin bag,
Hmm.
right? And a week ago you threw away a plate of rice or something, and then obviously years back you've been throwing things away in that trash bag, but every day you pick up that same trash bag, you go to work with it, you go shopping with it, you go meet your friends with it. Everywhere you go, you're carrying this thing.
Mm,
And then over time, obviously these food items, even as we see day to day, they start to mold and they smell. And like
mm.
this vision showed me that this trash bag is obviously the emotional baggage that we're carrying.
Yeah.
And then the food items that are going bad in in the trash bag are the things that we're not dealing with, that over time are getting worse and worse. And the smell coming off of those things is the energy that we put out. So
Yeah.
you could walk into a room and then the energy changes, or people approach you differently because you're carrying emotional baggage that has a stink from you.
Mm, mm.
So I
That's
think
deep.
it's important to really get into these things and deal with it, no matter how ugly it is.
Mm,
In the end game, it's gonna make you, obviously it's gonna rid you of all those things because you've dealt with it
mm,
appropriately. No matter how hard it is, no matter how much it smells or whatever, you've dealt with it and you've got to a point where you're now no longer carrying this trash bag.
mm,
And now your energy transforms, and now people want to be around you because your energy just is at this high that people are like attracted to you
mm,
because it's
mm.
something about you that's just like, oh wow, you know?
That is really deep. That it is very deep because again, everybody can do an introspection, and they will find that there are things that they've kind of not dealt with on their own,
Mm,
where essentially that very thing that they've not dealt with, that very thing that they've not kind of addressed in their life, be it a character flaw or be it whatever it could be,
mm,
essentially a trait, a personality trait, maybe. Um, yeah, that very thing essentially they become known by.
yeah.
And you've seen it so many times when, like you say, you're in a room and I experienced that, where I worked essentially.
Mm,
Um, we'd be in a meeting, or it'd be like the preambles before a meeting, and all the teammates or whatever are all in there, and we're having a joke, a catch up, and then as soon as the manager walks in, who nobody likes because of one reason or another. It could be that he's very unprofessional. It could be that he has no people skills. Whatever the issue is,
mhm,
but it's affecting everybody in the team. And then
mhm,
as soon as they walk into the room,
mhm.
everybody is just quiet. Not because they're fearful of him, but just the energy changes.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Mhm,
And so it is something that is I'm sure everybody can relate to, as far as if they were to do an introspection and they were to see that, what,
yeah.
this is something that is holding me back. This is, like you say, and I like that analogy that you made there about the trash bag. This is the bag that I'm carrying, that I don't, for whatever reason, I haven't been able to get rid of. I've
Mm,
not been able to recycle this, or actually dispose of this specific or these specific things,
mm,
and they are holding me back because they're a stink. Nobody wants to come towards something that smells bad, right?
mm, yep.
You have obviously creatures that are made specifically to decompose and to dispose of that stuff,
Mhm,
but for the most part, nobody wants to be around something that has a foul smell.
mhm. And
And so
just
the same energy is translated in a, I guess, a spiritual sense,
yeah.
whereby if you emit negative energy, nobody's going to be attracted to that.
Mhm. Or on the flip side, because you're emitting that energy out, you attract that energy right back.
Could be,
So
exactly,
you
yeah.
find that there are certain types of characters that only target those that seem vulnerable. Hence
Mm,
why you have certain relationships where either the guy or the girl is a victim in that relationship,
mm,
whether they're emotionally being attacked,
mm,
physically sometimes, which is awful. Either side, it shouldn't happen, but it does.
yeah.
So the energy you put out is what you get back.
100%. I try to live my life in that type of way, whereby whatever energy I get from people is what I put out.
Hmm.
Now, that's rightly or wrongly, that's just how I've always lived my life.
Mm,
But I get the feeling that kind of the more that I'm exploring, how I would like to be as a person, the more and more I feel like, what, it probably isn't the correct approach.
mm,
I don't know if you've ever heard the term kill them with kindness.
hmm. I have.
So when someone is being a total, um, trying not to cuss here, but basically someone is being is being belligerent towards you or towards people that are around you or people that you care about.
Mm.
Um, and then they say, nah, 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 don't do that. Kill them with kindness. You know.
Yeah.
Now, the thing about that is I've tried that. I have definitely tried that, but I feel like in the state that I was in, the mental state that I was in back then, I didn't have the patience to see that all the way through
Okay.
because initially, I mean, put yourself in the situation of someone who is like that. You're constantly being rude to to people. You're constantly cussing them out or whatever, but they're
Mm.
always kind to you.
Mm.
Initially, you'll feel like, oh, these people are idiots, man. What are they doing? Like, I'm just gonna continue to do what I'm doing. But
Mm.
the more and more you do that, eventually you're gonna break down this person's resolve,
Yeah.
and they're gonna start asking themselves, "Nah, you know what, man? I don't know why I'm behaving this way towards these people, or even any people."
Mm.
Eventually, that is something that does happen.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen it. I've not been, I've not been the person that did it, but I have seen it happen. And I guess, as I say, in my own situation, I just wasn't mentally ready to do it for the long haul to actually see the results at the end of it.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, like I say, I feel like that's how we should be. I feel like whatever energy that you're absorbing, number one, or that you're receiving, number one, don't absorb it. Don't
Mm.
absorb it into your spirit, into your psyche, right?
Yep.
But number two, continue to emit that positive energy, that
Mm.
high vibration energy.
Mm.
You know, number one, it will obviously attract people towards you in
Mm.
terms of um, you're a beacon of light. You know what I mean?
Mm.
But also those that seek to do harm to you, whether that be verbal, physical, or whatever, um, you start to, through just the way that you act and you carry yourself, they will begin to question themselves like, well, this person doesn't do anything to anybody. Why am I trying to be, do you know what I mean? Why am I trying to be some type of way towards this person?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I feel like, at least for me personally, the only way to really achieve that is through looking inwards rather,
Mm.
looking within in terms of how you can get yourself on a path where you are like that on a continuous basis.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is as well, the key word that I'm saying there is on a continuous basis. So that means that you're continually meditating and you're continually, reconnecting with your true self, as it were,
Mm-hmm.
in order to maintain that level of positivity and that level of a high vibrational level, whereby, as I say, you're attracting positivity towards you, and that could be in whatever field. It could be, you want to be rich, you want to make a lot of money, and that's the great thing that I find about meditation, or specifically as it pertains to your inner potential.
Yeah.
You can literally achieve whatever it is you want to achieve, so long as you do the hard work.
Of course.
And now when I say that, people think, oh, if you want to be a footballer, you got to train every day, and yes, there is an element of that, obviously, but the hard work is you looking towards within
Mm-hmm.
for the answers of how do I get to that goal that
Mm-hmm.
I want to achieve.
Yep.
How do I become rich and successful so that I can help, whoever it is you want to help, or, you just want to be financially free?
Mm-hmm.
Or how do I, you know what I mean? Like whatever it is that your goal is, you can achieve that by looking within.
Yeah. Definitely.
And I think
Yeah.
that's where the disconnect is, where people think about hard work. I don't
Oh,
think that physical hard work is as difficult as aligning your mental with the correct way to think and how to align your thoughts with your objectives.
100%. Yep.
I think personally that's the most difficult thing
That's
because
harder. Absolutely. Because I mean, like we mentioned before, that it's not easy looking at the bad parts of you. It's much easier to be a victim and be
oh
blaming
yeah,
other people and outside things rather than thinking about, okay, what was my like, how did I play a part in that? What was my role in that situation? What did I do? What could I have done different? Why did I do that? Why did I do that? You know, just like actually digging deep and getting to the root cause of things. Like, we have to save ourselves from ourselves a lot of the time as well.
Hey,
Because you can be your own worst enemy as well.
Yeah.
You know?
And, just on that, I think, our biggest enemies are definitely ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We hold ourselves back more than any kind of level of criticism or whatever from external sources. It's definitely ourselves that we have to overcome in order to really achieve anything.
Definitely.
Now, people will say, oh, well, you have external influences that are, hindering you. I remember Cat Williams once made a joke about how, a girl was in a relationship for some time, and then by the end of it, her boyfriend had ruined her self-esteem.
Okay.
And then Cat Williams was like, well, it's esteem of yourself. So how did I ruin your self-esteem?
Yeah.
And I that's kind of how I look at this, because, in order for you to achieve anything in life, you have to have self-belief.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
just goes from the basic, the basic level. We're not even talking about, being spiritual and, going on a spiritual journey where it's success. We're not even talking about that. We're just talking about, you want to be an athlete, you want to be the president of, a particular country, or you want to be a successful businessman. You have to first and foremost believe in yourself, and then other people will believe in you.
Yep.
And so the most difficult person to impress is always going to be yourself. And the most difficult person to, I guess, enemy to overcome is always going to be yourself.
Yes.
Because once you can overcome yourself and you realize the potential that you have, then literally there's not anything that you can't achieve. And then once you add a spiritual element to that as well, then the sky, it really is the limit in that sense.
It's actually just a jumping off point, the sky. When you get
yeah, you could definitely look at it that way.
Yeah. See, it's a bit of a tricky one. Because with, like you say, with the relationship one, like, as much as, yes, it is self-esteem and it's got to start from within, 100%. But the guy involved in that, he must also have his own issues going on. We don't know what he said or did to this girl.
For sure.
But he must also have his own demons that he's not dealing with, and he's projecting them onto this girl, and she's absorbing these things. And then that just kind of causes a domino effect, because now this girl, the next person that she dates, or her friends, her family, are also going to feel the effects of that.
For sure.
So
For sure.
I think we all have to play our role in that. Like, we have to be conscious of what we're saying to people, what we're doing to people, because especially if you want to kind of break the cycle, we have to be we have to hold ourselves accountable to what we're doing and say to people, because the world, in the state that it's in right now, it's just, it's not terrible, but it's not great either. It's more bad than good, just by the way people treat each other, basically. And I just think if we want to move forward with it, it's got to start from, what is it that I'm saying to someone? What is it that I'm doing to someone else? How is it affecting them? Because it's that whole paying it forward thing. If I'm nice to you, like, for example, there was this thing, I don't know if Starbucks or McDonald's still do this thing, where someone, say I'm driving and then I pay for you behind me, and then you pay the person behind you, that kind of thing. I feel like it's that sort of thing where it starts from with yourself. Work on yourself, of course. Be nice to yourself, but not to a point where you're like now ignorant to things. Be wholeheartedly honest with yourself and work through things, but be gentle with yourselves, because you didn't get to that point overnight, so you're not going to resolve things overnight either. But when you get a real understanding of something, pay it forward, help someone else with it. And the more we all get involved in this kind of thinking, and meditation and like I don't want to say self-help, but like self-discovery, I guess. And like real self-discovery, not the ego self.
Mm.
We would go such a long way as a human race. The world would transform, but then there's always going to be those people who try and justify things, and that's another thing that we gotta keep in mind about. But that's a conversation for another day, I guess.
The thing is, I'm not trying to say that, in a situation where you're in an abusive relationship, whether that's physical, verbal, mental, whatever. I'm not trying to say that the person who's doing the abusing is in the clear.
Mm.
Far from it. He or she has issues that they have to deal with themselves. But I think, again, from and people are going to say that this is, these new Gen Z or millennials, which sadly I'm still part of, but they're going to turn around and say, well, you're victim blaming. But at the end of the day, if you're in an abusive relationship, and I kind of don't want to delve too deep into this because it's straight enough topic, but just to clarify, if you're in an abusive relationship and you're staying, then it kind of brings into question again the whole issue of how do you perceive yourself to be?
Mm-hmm.
Are you worthy of better? And then B, do you have, which is connected to A, do you have any level of self-respect to where you realize that you don't deserve this? Nobody really deserves that.
Yeah.
So what are you doing to, not to aggravate the situation, because again, that to me is the wrong way of looking at it, but what are you doing to either make the situation better or get out?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Some people, they can't be helped, who are
Yeah.
the abusers. They just can't be helped.
Mm.
Unfortunately, that's just how they are, and they'll have a second go around. I personally believe in reincarnation, but that's, a subject for another day.
Mm.
But they'll have another go round
Mm-hmm.
at trying to rectify their issues, right? If they don't in this life, then definitely in the next, right?
Yeah. Mm.
So they can't be helped. But the point is you as the person being abused, right? Again, from an introspective point of view, do you have any self-respect to where you think to yourself, I don't need to be going through this because I am worthy of better?
Yeah.
Now it's easier said than done. I'm fully aware of that, but that is where the difficulty comes in, and that's where I keep harping on about the mental aspect of labor. In a sense, is more difficult than the physical,
Oh yeah.
because you can train. You can, you know what I mean, like you can train to, be a power lifter, and it might take you a couple of years, but you can do it. You know what I mean?
Mm.
You can do it at least to your body's limit, but there's certain mental trials and tribulations that, going through them is really, really difficult.
Yeah, it is.
Really difficult.
Mm.
There's so many people that suffer from all different forms of mental issues: depression, manic depression, bipolar disorders, and whatever the causes are. The fact is that people are going through these things.
Yeah.
So it's not easy for people,
Mm-hmm.
because if it was easy, they would have been able to overcome them.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why I say, once again, that the physical element of what you go through is not as difficult as the mental aspect. It can't be. The two cannot be compared. Because, again, with physical abuse, yeah, it might cause some trauma, and most likely will cause some trauma, but the likelihood is that those wounds will heal, even if there may be some superficial damage. Those wounds will heal.
Yeah.
But mental scarring, when you go to the point where you basically snap because your mind has had enough, that is very difficult to come back from.
Yeah, it is.
Just going through it is difficult enough,
Mm.
but then to actually then make a full recovery from that, very difficult.
It is. Because the thing is, like with mental and emotional stuff, like you can't like physically
Honestly,
nurse it back to health.
yeah.
Whereas, like you say, a broken arm or whatever, you can nurse that physically, whether, dressings, medication, ointments,
Mm,
whatever.
mm.
But emotional stuff, like, you can't nurse that physically. You have to go within.
Yeah, yeah, and
Some people, they go with the route of like masking it with medications and stuff, but as soon as they come off of that medication, the issue's still there.
yeah,
Or they mask it with alcohol and drugs. As soon as they come off of that high, that thing is still there.
yeah, 100%. And that's where I was saying about how, you know, when I was trying to say that you can't escape it because it's constantly there. Now with physical pain, you can sort of eventually that pain will go away, right?
Yeah.
Even if you may have lasting damage from whatever the injury was, but the pain itself, more often than not, will go away, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the mental aspect of it, especially if it's trauma such that, like I said, you snap, to then try to go back to prior to the snap is such a long and arduous process.
Yeah.
Now I'm not gonna sit here and claim that I've, experienced it as bad as, most people out there, but I've had my fair share of, what I mean, those type of experiences, and I know that it's not easy to come back from.
Yeah.
Now I can only imagine people who've gone through way worse than what I've gone through and how difficult it must have been for them.
Yeah.
And that's why, again, going back to the main topic of discussion, meditation, looking for the answers from within, looking for healing from within,
Yeah.
because it's all there.
Mm-hmm.
I make the point every time that we have, this podcast, that I'm not a Christian at all. I'm not a
Mm-hmm.
follower of Christ. I'll say it for the record. I don't believe that, Jesus Christ was a white man that lived in the Middle East to some odd thousand years ago. I just don't believe that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But reading the Bible itself, and even then, only really certain aspects of the Bible, there are some nuggets in there that when you look at it, you're like, you know what? That has a ring of truth to it that I can relate with.
Yeah.
And I say that to say because there is a story of when Jesus said that my people perish for lack of knowledge, right?
Yep.
Now, people tend to think that, the knowledge of how the world is and how things work was stolen from, University of Alexandria, and, now it's all hidden in some underground library in, Rome. And that may very well be true. I'm not actually even disputing whether or not that's true. What I'm saying is for people to think that that's the limit of human knowledge is a flawed view of
Yeah.
how the human, I guess, species was created.
Yeah. True.
And some people will be out there thinking, well, you just said that you're not a Christian, but you believe in creation. Well, yes, I do. The
Mm-hmm.
two, to me, are mutually exclusive. It doesn't mean that because I'm not a Christian, I therefore don't believe that we were created as humans here. Now, I still believe that we were created, just not by the same God that Christians believe, or Islam, or whoever, right? I
Yeah.
still believe that we were created by a creator, a supreme being. And the way to get connected back to that supreme being, that creator, is through meditation. Once
Yeah.
again,
Mm-hmm.
everything keeps pointing back to meditation.
Yeah.
And so, just to finish my point, sorry for digressing, I think that, in order for you, because like I said, people think that, the world's knowledge is all hidden in an underground library in Rome. Again, I don't know whether or not that's true. Seems to be that a lot of people believe that. It may very well be true. I'm not even disputing that. But again, the answers to any question that you may have about any aspect of your life, the way that this world works, anything can be found from within.
Yep.
And this is why I wanted today's episode to focus on that, because there's so much misinformation going on out there
Yep.
about this supposed virus,
Mm.
about, an impending collapse. as far as the financial system of the world is concerned. You know, so much information that is just being bombarded. It's information overload, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, I feel like it's very important in these times, again, in these times when everything seems to be hitting the fan, right? And it's just crap scattered everywhere and you don't know what to make of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Take a step back, do an introspection, start meditating.
Yeah. And I think just kind of add to that point that in these times, the way I see it, there's two options, life or
Mm-hmm.
death. And I'm not saying like a physical death. That could be the case in whatever circumstance that's unfortunate to happen. But here I'm talking about spiritually.
Okay.
So you could either choose to fall prey to the information overload that's out there, the misinformation, and just the crap that's going on. Or, like you say, take a step back and choose life by
Mm,
way of actually reaching within
mm,
for those answers. Because I think there's a scripture, actually, I'm going to paraphrase. I haven't read the Bible in, in a long time, but isn't there somewhere in the Bible where it says that we are little gods and God is in us? So everything that we need spiritually, we have. Like, yeah, you might need resources in terms of like maybe reading your Bible, the Quran, whatever, watching videos of people that have that knowledge. Yes, those resources are important, but equally, we have the answers within because God is in us. Or the creator is in us, the universe is in us. We are the universe because we are a result of the universe's creation.
mm, mm,
So for me personally, once I recognized that and once I really truly understood that, it's like there's no other person on this planet that can tell me who I am, what I am, and tell me my worth
mm.
because I have
100%.
discovered that for myself. There's
100%.
nothing that can change that for me. So
100%.
I think it's so important for people to take responsibility of their own life and stop living passively. Hence why I
Mm,
say there's that life or death thing. Choose life. It's in the
mm.
Bible as well, if you are, from a Christian background.
Oh
It's,
yeah, 100%.
it's like
100%.
you have a choice, life or death, but God, the universe, urges you to choose life.
Mm, mm. And that's pretty much exactly what the scripture actually says. It says, you know, I forget who the creator is said to have been speaking with, but basically presented them with two options. He said, I bring before you life and death. But then the creator says to them, choose life,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about it is right, the world that we live in works on a specific legal system whereby silence is acquiescence,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now you can actively make a decision to choose life, or you cannot make a decision, right? But in actual fact, you doing that is you actually making a decision.
Yeah.
So you're staying silent about an issue that, and this could be at a either microcosm or macrocosm level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say, for example, it's an issue that involves, in fact, you know what? Let's just talk about Brexit, right? I remember when the vote happened for the UK to leave the EU. So many of me, my colleagues, were saying, you know, I kind of like things the way they are as far as, you know, our relationship with the EU. So I don't feel like there's a need for me to go and vote, right?
Mm.
But what that actually enabled, what that actually led to, rather, was an influx of all the people that wanted to leave. And I'm not, you know, I'm not for or against leaving, so I'm not politically leaning in any way. I'm literally just making this as an example.
Okay.
But it enabled those that wanted to leave to go and vote in their droves,
Yeah.
right? Because and they were the ones who actively made a decision that listen, I'm gonna go and vote because this is what I believe in, and this is the direction I want to go in. right?
Mm-hmm.
And those of us who made the decision, but you know what, I'm not gonna vote. Like things are gonna stay the same. I just kind of, you just kind of going along with things passively.
Yeah.
And so what ended up happening was a huge majority of people, in fact, actually, in all respects, a huge minority of people ended up actively making a decision for the rest of the country.
Yeah.
And that is what tends to happen in our lives when we just go with the flow. We live passively.
Mm-hmm.
That to me was a great analogy of how most of us live our lives.
Yeah.
We are presented with two options here, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the options requires a hell of a lot of work from you,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But the results of that can't even be quantified.
Yeah.
Doesn't even compare to the amount of work that you have to put in.
Mm.
The other option is, well, you don't have to do anything, but whatever happens is what's going to happen. Hence why we have, sayings such as "Que sera, sera, whatever will be,"
Yeah.
because people just live their lives, and whatever's going to happen, that's just the luck of the draw.
Mm.
But I'm no longer a believer in that. I no longer subscribe to that idea that, whatever will happen is just what's gonna happen. It
Yeah.
is what it is type of thing. Now, of course, it is a very difficult mindset to get yourself out of on a day-to-day basis,
Mm.
because sometimes things still just happen and you're like, well, there's not a lot I could have done about that. But I'm sure if you were to look back at the things that led to that thing happening, there's something that you could have actively done to prevent that from happening.
Mm.
But that's going into it on a much deeper level than I kind of wanted to discuss for today. I'm going to keep it brief today because really and truly, I kind of wanted to get your experience of it, put my experience of it out there, and
Yeah.
then just discuss some of the surface level stuff. I always believe that with these type of things, again, it has to come from within, right? So even though you're looking within, it has to come from within. The desire has to be yours in the first place as to whether or not you're going to embark on this journey of spiritual enlightenment.
Mm.
And unfortunately, for a lot of Christians, this type of subject is very taboo in terms of they've been indoctrinated into believing, as we were as well. Let's have it right.
Mm-hmm.
But indoctrinated nonetheless into believing that this is some type of witchcraft and it's demonic and all this other stuff when the truth couldn't be further from that.
Yeah. I just want to add to what you just said about the choices and like whether something was going to happen anyway or if you could have done something different.
Hmm.
A few months back, the thing is, like, I just want to say this before I go into my point that the universe, God, the creator, Allah, whoever you choose to refer to, the maker of everything that we know, they're so faithful and they will drive you to the answers that you need.
Hmm.
And it won't be forceful because obviously, like I said, with meditation, there has to be that intention. Like
Hmm.
you have to want it. And the universe will show you and will guide you. So there was this program that I was watching a few months back. It's called Afterlife. And the thing about TV programs like series and movies,
Hmm.
there's always like truth nuggets scattered throughout these
Oh yeah.
things.
Oh
And
yeah.
one particular thing that stood out for me, I think it was one of the episodes in like series series 2, I think, where the guy he'd just gone to the supermarket to buy like canned food for his dog or whatever, and he's walking home. So basically the background of it is that his wife died of cancer and he just felt like life wasn't worth it. Like he
Hmm.
had no hope basically. So he's now walking home from the supermarket or corner shop, whatever it was. And as he's walking home, these two young adults approach him, demanding money from him. And one of them threatens his life. And so now this guy, he's like, I've lost my wife. I hate my job. There's nothing, like, you threatening my life is nothing to me. But he's coming from it, like, from a negative perspective. But the point that really took me there is that even in his state, there was a choice, and he made a choice to live. So he fought for what he believed in that moment. He was scared for his life, of course. You know, when you see him walking away, you can see, like, oh my God, he's like really in his emotions. It's like he was afraid for a second there, but he made the choice to continue living.
Okay.
So there's always a choice in something, and even just that line when he said that, there's always a choice. You can't keep living as a victim, man. It's easy to be victim to be a victim rather, because you can just place blame on someone else, something else, someone did something to you. It's easy to just go to that default. But once you take ownership of the choices that you make, you see life completely differently. And then another thing that I just kind of wanted to kind of add my 2 cents to what you said. I'm 50-50 on this one, where you said about we can make choices in the things that we do, and like if something was going to happen, it was going to happen anyways. With that one, I'm a little bit 50-50, because the way the universe showed me life, because like you, I also believe in reincarnation, because I see God as a fair God. It wouldn't make sense for God to create us all equal, but then we have separate life experiences. We have these choices to choose life or death. Some people choose death, not knowing, because obviously the pleasures are just so irresistible. And then God is
kind of the hard way, right?
himself.
Yeah.
Just like if you look at a parent and child dynamic, our parents, if they're good, godly parents, will love us unconditionally. Yes, as children, we're going to do things that are, they're naughty or whatever, and like we shouldn't be doing these things. And they're going to reprimand us. And you're going to have a moment of hell in that, where, as Africans, we get, spanking, as they call it. So that for a child, and even as a parent, like no parent enjoys giving their child a beating for misbehaving. So we're all going through a moment of hell in that moment. But at the end of it, that your parent, being a good, godly parent, will sit you down and say, look, this is what you did, and this is why it's bad.
Yeah.
We move forward together, and you don't do that thing again, because you understand that I chose death in that moment. My parent reprimanded me. I won't do that again, because I understand the difference.
Yeah.
Because if I continue down that path, I'm just going to make death choices, and it's going to affect other people. Then also to kind of tie it all together, that like some people just don't learn. For whatever reason, whether they're ignorant, whether they they think they're right all the time, or it just doesn't sink in. So they have to keep going through the same thing over and over again until they actually get the lesson, until they understand. So the way the universe showed me is that life is like a game. So like, say for example, your Super Mario game, there's different levels. You can't get to level 5 if you don't complete level 1, 2, 3, and 4. Each level has its own
unless you have a cheat code.
right?
Or unless you have a cheat code. I'm just playing.
Yeah, this is exactly what I was going to get to the point of. Like, you can't get to level 5 if you haven't completed the previous levels. Each level has its own obstacles. Each level has its own lessons to be learned that you can now apply to level 2. Level 2's lessons now, you can apply to level 3. Level 1, what was challenging you, now at level 3 is easy peasy. You can choose to use cheat codes, but when you get to level 5, having used cheat codes all through 1, 2, 3, and 4, it's gonna come bite you in the ass.
Yeah.
So,
And that's kind of what I was hoping that you would get to, because it's very easy to cheat your way to level 5. When you get to level 5, you've not even experienced level 1.
exactly.
So how do you expect to overcome level 5?
Exactly.
But go ahead, sorry.
So this is the point that I was gonna make, that like some things I feel like it's gonna happen regardless of whether you change something or you don't. I mean, actually, let me retract that. Some things will happen if you don't change certain behaviors, because it's like the universe is telling you, you need to address this thing. This is what's
Mm,
holding you back. This is your issue from, when you were 5 years old, 10 years old, that obviously at that age you didn't know how to handle.
mm.
But I'm showing you now. So you have to actually sit down with this thing, work through it,
Yeah,
and then you can move forward.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree with you there to a point, and I think just to kind of buttress what you're saying there in respects of that, um, I think when basically, let me go back rather. When I was saying about how things will happen regardless, I wasn't necessarily saying that you have no control necessarily,
Oh,
right?
mm-hmm.
To a point, you don't. Like for example, you can't control whether or not the sun will come up, right, or rise in the day.
Right.
You know, there are some things that are just out of our control, and you can look at different aspects of our lives, and even within our bodies. You can't control the rhythm of your heartbeat. You can sort of control the your breathing to a certain extent, but
Mm.
not for very long. When you're sleeping, your body's breathing on its own,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the same way, like I said, there's levels to this, like you said, and also you can look at it from a microcosm to a macrocosm level. It's always the same principles are always going to apply.
Mm-hmm.
What I was kind of getting at was when people say whatever will be, was because they weren't, and even me, right? We weren't channeling our lives towards a predictable goal or a predictable endpoint, right?
Right.
We're
Okay.
just kind of letting things happen to us. And there may be a degree of control here and there, but for the most part, we would either blame it on luck, whether that's good or bad luck. We would blame it on circumstances. We would blame it on parents. We would blame it on friends, girlfriends, whatever. But we never really were looking at ourselves to be like, what is it I'm doing that's putting me in this position? Right? And if what I'm doing is choosing to be with this girl, then I need to fix that. Because okay, fine, it may very well be this girl's influence on my life, right? But
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, I'm choosing to be with her.
Yeah.
My not making the decision to leave is making the decision to stay. Either way, you're making a decision. And
Yeah.
that's why I say there is a degree of control in essentially everything. But what the consequences of those things will be that you allow to happen may not necessarily be in your control, may not be predictable, and so hence why the mantra, I guess, came about of whatever will be.
Okay.
But I'm saying that there's a better way of living, right? The
Mm.
way of living where your life is predictable. You know what's going to happen based on the decisions that you make. But I am of the opinion that we're a long way as a human race, never mind me personally as an individual, as a human race, we're a long way from being at that point where we live such a spiritual life that everything that we do is within our control.
Mm.
We're far and away, long way from that.
Yeah.
But I just have this conviction. I'm just gonna call it that. I have this conviction that that is possible. That it is possible to live your life whereby every decision you make, you know what the consequence. Well, to an extent, you kind of know now. But again, we live our life so passively that we just make decisions on the fly and don't even really think about it,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But I am of the opinion that we can get to that point where every decision we make, we know whether it's a good or bad decision then and there because we're so connected to our true selves,
Yeah.
aka the creator, however you want to look at that. And
Mm.
again, that all comes from meditation,
Yeah.
at least how I look at it.
Mm.
And I guess my final thoughts on this whole thing is I just want to get people to a point where at least this is a topic of discussion for them. Whether you're a Christian, you're a Muslim, ultimately at the end of the day, we're all humans. We're all in this together, right?
Yeah.
there are those who have appointed themselves to be the leaders of the free people of God, wherever you may happen to live in the world. And they're taking the rest of us in a direction that we may not necessarily want to go. But the thing is, for the most part, we're not making a decision to get off this boat, right? The ship that's sailing in a particular direction, right? And like I said before, silence is acquiescence.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, they've said, as the leaders of the world, we are going this way. But nobody, there's been some objection, but they very quickly get censored.
Yeah.
Right? But ultimately, in order for you to really get out of the system, you have to look from within
Yeah.
as to what it is you need to do in order to get out.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
and like I said, this is the main motivation behind my wanting to talk about this today is to get this to be a topic of discussion for people to where they start to do some of their own research. Like I said, I'm gonna put some stuff in the show notes, to get maybe people started on that. But ultimately, it's got to be your own journey. It's got to come from within.
Mm-hmm.
And unless that happens, then nothing is gonna happen. Even with me, I still, I'm talking about this as zealously as I am, but there are still times when I'm like, is it really gonna, you know what I mean? Is it really gonna bear the fruits that I think is gonna bear? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the thing is, that's to me, I think that's is just part of the journey. That's just another thing that you have to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
But overcome it you must
Mm-hmm.
in order for you to get to your end goal. Any closing thoughts?
My closing thoughts are, I mean, I'm really passionate about this. I don't necessarily like talk about it a whole lot, um, because just with the way people are, indoctrination and whatnot, um,
Mm.
people don't get it. They don't understand it. They think it's a bunch of rubbish, basically. Like what do they call it? Hocus pocus.
Mm.
But me personally, I am so passionate about this, like, because I just believe that everyone deserves to be happy. And
Mm.
I'm not saying happy in the sense, I mean, yes, it's like I've said before, it's nice to have nice things, but that inner joy and just that peace, I feel like everyone deserves that. We've all been going
Oh
through
yeah.
things.
Oh yeah.
And just that self discovery, that journey
Mm.
of facing your demons is one of the hardest things that you'll do. And some days you won't even want to go back because you saw something that you didn't like and it shook you.
Yeah.
But to go back and actually address those things and overcome those things, the reward at the end of it is something that is beyond anything of this world.
Mm.
Like, I've got to a point where I'll reiterate, it's nice to have nice things, but I am no longer concerned about things.
Mm.
I feel like I have everything that I need.
Mm.
I, I I've never really been a person to be about designer stuff and whatever. And I'm thankful for that because that's not something that now I have to have to address within myself. It's one less thing to worry about. But
Mm.
just to have that sense of like that wholeness. Yes, there are times where it's like, oh, I wish I had that, but then it's like, but when I leave, where am I taking that thing?
Mm.
No. So let me focus on the things that I will take with me, that
Yeah.
are part of me as part of the universe.
Yeah.
So I think just that when you connect with your true self, I mean, you won't want anything else.
Possibilities are endless. Yeah,
Mm.
for sure. And this is maybe just to add to what you said there. I think as much as we're fearing what we may face as far as our own flaws, but better than that, how about the really amazing things that you're going to find out about yourself that you
Mm.
never had any clue about.
Mm-hmm.
The abilities that you
Yeah.
have, but
Mm-hmm.
you never had any idea about.
Mm.
And this is not about becoming rich and famous necessarily. This is not about, trying to acquire material wealth. No, this is about, an inner discovery of who you truly are as a human being and
Mm.
what it is you were created for. That's kind of the level that I want people to be thinking about when
Yeah.
they embark on this type of stuff.
Mm.
But yeah, so, this is something that I think, we need to delve into on a much deeper level. I think, this episode that we've had today has been great. It's been a great conversation, but I feel like, we maybe need another 2 or 3 episodes just to kind of really delve into the meat of of meditation, essentially,
Mm.
uh, the different techniques, and stuff like that. So definitely wanna revisit this, and delve a little bit deeper. But I just want to say, you know what? Thank you very much, for joining me again today, Nisi. Really appreciate it. Your insights have been amazing. To be honest, the you were kind of the main reason recently why I decided to actually just go for it and just whatever I face is what I'm going to face as far as my own demons and my own struggles, and trying to discover my inner self.
Yeah.
Uh, so I'm really appreciative of that. Thank you again for your insights and, you know giving us a piece of your own experience as far as meditation and how it's kind of, helped you to get to where you are today, and I'm sure to where you want to be in the future.
Yeah.
Um, and for anybody that's out there listening, thank you for joining us. Thank you for making it this far. We really appreciate it. And more importantly than anything, we hope that this topic of discussion is gonna be is gonna bear fruit for you in your life.
Yeah.
Hopefully that you will embark on a journey now whereby, you go on true self discovery and see what it is that your own purpose is in this world that we live in.
Yeah. I
I've
just
been Nisi.
I just want to acknowledge that, like, I am so thankful for the universe to use me as an instrument to inspire you, and I hope to inspire many other people. It's just I don't want the focus to be on me. Like, this, the bigger picture isn't about me,
Yeah.
but I'm glad that my story and my experiences are able to, you know, cause a breakthrough and inspire you. So I'm thankful
Mm,
for this. Yeah.
mm. Yeah, and thank you very much.
Mm.
Once again, thank you everybody for tuning in this week, or to this episode, and we look forward to another great episode. Hopefully next week. Um,
Yep.
Maybe 1 or 2 things I have to move around, but I'm trying to kind of keep it on a weekly schedule. Every week, every Thursday, 6 p.m. We try to go live and delve into the discussions, into the topics for that day. I kind of want to make, a part two, and at least a part two about meditation. I feel like, to me that's more important than what's going on in the world right now. So look out for that, and, look out for us again in the future.
Yeah.
Peace, everybody.
Bye.